This is a digital video, LCE graphics, and this is a brief explanation of our Level B reconditioning program. And this is a trimmer that's right now undergoing Level B reconditioning, and of course this means a real thorough cleaning, of course, and then a complete test of all the bearings, bushings, guides, power supplies, and everything that has to do with this machine operating. Inside you can see that all the belts are replaced. Now Level B is a standard that we use in which there are things we replace, like all of the transport belts. They're the most important belts in your booklet maker. We replace them all new. Bottom, top, as you can see here, the belts are brand new, and this machine was completely dismantled, cleaned, serviced, and then put together. I mean, it cosmetically looks like a new machine, but of course it has all the clutches. As you can see, you have a clutch there and a clutch there. All your drive belts, everything in here has been thoroughly inspected. Anything that even looks like it might be in bad shape gets replaced. The one thing that many times people don't appreciate is how much time it takes to do a system like this, and the environment. You have to have an environment that is suitable to do this kind of work. And we have a workshop here where we have our machines set up and we're reconditioning them as we go. Now these are the collator towers here. Now these towers are in process. Hey. This is a twin tower system and we typically do Level Bs in twin towers because the vast majority of our customers are interested in twin towers. It's very rare that we ever really sell a single tower. Anyway, on this system, the belts, all the transport belts, which are these right here, they're very important on a system. It's really the most important feeding part and often overlooked. And also overlooked many times are the sheet separators, which you can see them, those little yellow strips there in your screen. Those are the sheet separators, and those are very important. In fact, on any machine that we have under a service contract, those get replaced at the anniversary of the service contract every year. Transport belts get replaced every 2 years, need them or not, or every 3 million cycles. So that's about the life of their belts, 3 to 4 million cycles. And then of course your clutches, all of these, every one of these clutches have been removed, cleaned, inspected, and serviced and put back in. Any of them that show wear get replaced new. And the same thing goes for all your plastic transport gears. They're all removed, cleaned, lubricated, and put back on. Some of these have bearings in them, some of them run on bushings. And then of course putting everything back together. The touch screens are serviced, new batteries are installed on every machine that we recondition Level B. And then of course you have your down conveyor, a real important part of the system that so often gets ignored with people service machines. They don't think about how important this down conveyor is. The down conveyor belts have to be in excellent like new condition. It can't be worn or stretched. And then another thing we do is we clean all of these rollers. We mic them with a caliper to make sure they're not worn down beyond spec, and if they are, they're replaced. And then there's rollers internally that you can't see on this particular machine. We don't have one completely dismantled right now that we can show you the internal rollers, but they're actually small rollers that are inside. They're called eject rollers, and they're the rollers that pull the sheet away from the manifold. When the manifold picks the sheet up, it pulls the sheet out, and then the eject rollers pull that out. Now, on this side, there's a ton of work on the non-operator side. You see all the fans? Every one of those fans are taken out and they're tested. What happens with these fans is they get slow. And they'll run, but they're slow. So we have to test them to make sure that they're operating properly, and if they're not, they get replaced. And that's one of the things about these collators, that every time we get a collator in, or any time we go to service a collator, there's always 5 or 6 bins in a twin tower that aren't functioning properly, sometimes more. It's very often that we see a customer running, bin 1 and 2, but skipping 3 and 4 and that kind of thing. And the reason is because the problems are never addressed or corrected. And the same thing goes for the lift motors. Lift motors are often ignored because, you know, if the bin comes up and goes down, oh, everything's great, but not really, because if the lift motors start going bad, they'll miss an increment. Like the sensor will send a signal to it to go up, but it won't go up. So then you're running along, and then you have a misfeed, and you know, and you lose downtime, and another misfeed later, and all those little misfeeds are because these motors aren't lifting when they're supposed to. Because when brushes start going bad inside of them, they'll skip every now and then. You know, instead of advancing the bin up like they should, they don't. And the next thing we have is, of course, your control boards. Every one of these are taken out, inspected, make sure they're working properly, all the triacs, because these little boards keep the sensors, the bin detects, control the blowers, control the lift motors. All of that's controlled by that small board. And anyway, here are your sensors. They're all removed, and any of the sensing bulbs that are worn, they actually shouldn't have flat spots on them, so if they do, they get replaced. Or if they're not working, they get replaced. And of course, they get cleaned and put back in. So there's, you know, when we put out a level B, I mean, I don't like to use the word like new, but it's as close to new as a used machine could ever get. You know, we also have a level A, which is a complete rebuild, but we haven't sold one of those in a couple of years because, mainly it's because of the cost. You know, it adds an extra $8,000 to $10,000 to the cost of one of these systems. And this is your lift unit here that we're working on. You can see this one's been completely gone to. Brand new belts on the lift conveyor. That's very important. We can't overemphasize how important those belts are. They get stretched out. They get built up with chemicals and stuff from computers and from printers and from presses. And then they slip and slide. The sets don't come through perfectly straight. So there's a lot to it. And then, of course, you have all the bearings inside this are replaced. And that's our standard at level B. And the same goes for the conveyor that transports the sets between the collator and the booklet maker. So next, we have the booklet maker. Okay, this is the hardest part of a reconditioning job. The booklet maker takes the biggest beating of all the machines. It's where the most money is spent on service calls. It's where the most repairs are because the booklet maker is doing a lot. You know, it's jogging the paper, it's transporting the paper, it's stapling, and then folding, and there are a lot of mechanisms that are part of this. Well, as you can see, this is the entry. We actually have another video that we'll send you that shows this completely torn down, where we pull it down to the side frames. But that's what we do on level B. All this stuff that you see in here now gets taken out. And even all those little patterns you see there, those little black patterns, they have to individually be serviced because they're important. They get worn out, the wheels get worn out, there's just a lot of stuff that goes bad. And so anyway, you can see new belts there, and that roller in the front there, where the belt's in, that's your transport roller, and that's the one that drives the belts and the one that advances the booklet. So that one gets replaced new too, and that's a $700 roller. So it's very expensive to recondition one of these. And this is your stitch heads, and they're of course serviced and inspected as well. They're not rebuilt now, but they're reconditioned, which some people could call it rebuild. I mean, nowadays, I don't know if anybody knows what rebuild really means. So anyway, but we know what it means because we know what we do here. And also, there are your eject wheels and brand new belts in the fold section. Also, on level B, we do a modification on the fold rollers because originally, as you can see that brown roller down there, not this one, but the one down at the bottom, that's a special rubber that actually Duplo started converting their fold rollers to rubber when they came out with the 5000 because the rubber fold roller transports the digitally printed booklets better, reduces scuffing, scratching, and slippage from these. This is your top rollers there. Originally, all these rollers were made with ebonite, hard plastic. And what would happen is the ebonite would get built up with the chemicals from the diffusers and so forth on the digital printers, and then they would start slipping. So we've eliminated that issue. As you can see, of course, these are all brand new belts here on the exit, down at the bottom, transport, And of course, this whole system's been dismantled. All the fold roller rollers get brand new bearings. That's a standard with us. You know, no exceptions, good, bad, or indifferent. They get replaced new. And of course, they get the rubber roller option, which is $1,000 for just the rubber rollers themselves for the set. Okay, so anyway. And of course, there's the side of your booklet maker. There's a lot in there too. You've got bearings on these idler gears. Sometimes the plastic gears are worn. We have to replace those. Transport rollers and so forth. So all of this stuff has been taken care of. The chains, as you see, you've got chains that drive the system, and those have all been replaced new. That's another standard with level B. And then, of course, over here you have the control side of the system. Your motherboards and everything else, your step motors. By the way, Duplo upgraded the step motor gears. Originally, the older 4000s and 20 and so forth had a plastic gear in there, but it had a brass hub in the middle, and that proved to be a disaster, because what would happen is the plastic gear would separate from the brass hub and then start slipping. So what would happen is every time you set the booklet maker up, it would come up with the wrong size, and that was a big problem. So now Duplo switched over to a very tough polymer gear, and we convert all of ours over to the polymer gear. Any level B system we sell gets all new polymer gears on all of the step motors, and that's a real important thing too. Little things that nobody really gives a whole lot of thought to, but that's what makes the machine function as it should. Anyway, I'm going to sign off, and this is LCE Graphics. If you have any questions about our Level B program and our reconditioned machinery, please feel free to give us a call. Thank you.